Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous Beached Granny wrap. If English isn't your first language, you can click this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. And this easy-to-follow step-by-step crochet tutorial is available in both left and right-handed, so please check the description box below to find the version that suits you best. And if you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com. And all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. This fabulous Beached Granny wrap is a super simple one-row repeat and creates an automatic straight edge. For my Beached Granny crochet wrap, I used 5 of these cakes. This is Cakes Cotton Royale from Ice Yarns. It is a fantastic size 3 DK weight or 8-ply if you are in Australia. I will link it below, but you could also use any yarn you have on hand. Just use the hook size suggested on the yarn label. The finished size of my wrap is 23 inches wide by 76 inches long. I used 500 grams or 150 meters of this cotton yarn, but you could make yours any size you like just by chaining the multiple, which is 6 plus 3. If you are making your own size, make your starting chain wider than you want your finished wrap to be. It shrinks up quite a bit when we are working into our chain, so make your chain 18 to 24 inches taller than the person you are making it for. I'm using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll also need a needle for sewing in your ends, a pair of scissors, and 27 stitch markers. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So this was a sample using the same yarn, but I think it's a little hard to see your stitches. So for this tutorial, I'll just be using a regular acrylic yarn so you can see what I am doing. So go ahead, grab your 27 stitch markers and your crochet hook and your yarn. We're just going to start by making our starting chain in sets of 12. For my wrap, I chained a total of 324 plus 3, so 327. But we're just going to be chaining sets of 12 until our stitch markers are used up. So make a slip knot and pop that onto your hook and chain 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So there's our pretty little V's. I'm just going to flip those to the side so we can see those back loops. And the first back loop is right by the working yarn, right up there. We're just going to take one of our stitch markers and pop it into that back loop. Just like that. And chain 12 more. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12. Pop in another stitch marker. And now pause the video and keep chaining sets of 12 and popping in a stitch marker until all 27 of your stitch markers are used up. For this tutorial, I'm just going to be making a smaller sample. So when you're done and you've used up all of your stitch markers, go ahead and chain 3 more. 1, 2, and 3. Roll that chain back to the side. We're going to be working in to the 4th chain, and that is right where our stitch marker is, so that's super easy to find. Just wrap your yarn and go into that same chain and same back loop as our stitch marker and make 1 double crochet. And we're just going to keep those pretty little V's rolled to the side. We want to be working into our back loops, although you can just work into the chain any which way you want to if working into the back loops is hard for you. And we're going to be skipping 4. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to go into the 5th chain. And I like that our stitch marker marks the chain we've already used. So skipping 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, working into the 5th back loop right there. Wrap your yarn, and into that back loop, we're going to do a V-stitch, which is 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet all into that same back loop, that same chain. And into the very next back loop, right there, we're going to do the same thing, 1 more V-stitch. So 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. We're just doing those sets, making these little shells all the way along our chain. So skipping 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So into that back loop right before our stitch marker, we're going to do our first V-stitch. So 1 double crochet, chain 1 and 1 double crochet, and into the stitch with, or into the back loop with the stitch marker, we're going to do the same thing. 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. So now we're skipping 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, working into the 5th. We're going to go into the 5th back loop and make our first V-stitch. 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. And into the next back loop, or the next chain, another V-stitch. So just slide that back loop onto your hook and make 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet into that same chain. You can pause the video and keep working along, skipping 4 and making a V-stitch into the 5th and 6th chain, all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. At the end of your row, you'll have 5 chains left, but don't stress out too much if you have 4 or you have 6. If you're a little bit off, you shouldn't be because we're using those stitch markers, but in case you are, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Just work into that very last back loop right on top of our slip knot, that little guy right there, and we're going to do 2 double crochets into that stitch. So wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets into that very last chain. There's 1 and 2. And don't worry if yours is all curled up. Mine is also curled up. It'll take a couple rows to straighten out, but don't worry about it. And you can pop out those stitch markers if they are in your way. Now to start round 2 is going to be our repeat row. So it's going to be what we are doing for the rest of our shawl. Super easy to do. Just remember how we start, remember what we do in the middle, and remember what we do at the end. So to start the repeat row and what we're going to do for the rest of our shawl, we're going to start every row this way. We're going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that counts as our first double crochet. And now we're going to turn our work, but how you want to turn your work so that your chain is easy for you to work into every single time. You want to slide your non-dominant hand underneath your yarn, grab your work, and bring it back that way. So you're going under and flipping, under and flipping. That'll keep your chain in a perfect spot to work into every time. And we are going to be working into our chain at the end of every row. So that counts as our first double crochet for our first stitch. Now we're going to be working into that second stitch right there. So into the second stitch, 1 double crochet. And that is the start of each of our rows. And now we're going to just be looking for these centers, our little trees in the middle of our shells. So each of our shells is 4 double crochets. We want to be looking for the 2 in the middle. Just those center 2 stitches, that's where we're working in for the rest of our pattern. So we're going to be skipping over and starting into this stitch and into that stitch. Just the center sticks or the center trees for this row, for the whole pattern. So there's our first 2 trees, our center stitches, and we're going to do a V into each. So how you can remember that is a V into the tree. So we're always looking for our trees, and our V's are 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. So that's our first tree gets our first V. Our next tree gets a V. So pop your hook in, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. So look for your next pair of trees, these guys right there. Each of those is going to get a V, so a V into a tree. The first center stitch or the first tree, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. And if I'm going too fast or too slow, you can just hit that gear button on the video right now and slow me down or speed me up. And into that second straight double crochet or that center stick, 1 V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. Now look for your next 2 trees, these stitches right there, a V into each. So into the first, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet, and into the second, a V-stitch, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing a V into each of those center trees all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. At the end of your row, we just have those 2 double crochets left at the very end. We're going to make 1 double crochet into each, or one's our chain actually. So 1 into our double crochet right there and 1 into our chain. So wrap your yarn and into that last real double crochet we made, a double crochet. And into our chain, we also want to be making a double crochets. And you want 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook. We're always starting and ending with 2 double crochets. So 2 double crochets to finish, and we're going to start with a chain 3, turn, and double crochet into that second stitch. So that is the repeat. Now you can pause the video, keep working along, growing your shawl until it is the width you want it to be, or you have run out of yarn. So when you have finished, you just have a little bit of yarn left. We're just going to do our last row. To start the last row, chain 1 and turn your work. We're going to make 1 single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet into the first stitch and 1 single crochet into the second. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and now into our center trees, 1 single crochet into each. 1 and 2. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1 single crochet into each of those center stitches. 1 single crochet and a second. Now for the chain along the top, we started with skipping chain 4 and we're finishing with a chain 3 in between. That is to keep the top of our wrap from like stretching out. So if you pull the chain now, it kind of gives you something to hold on to. Those are Dobermans next door, so cute, right? So that's why we're doing a chain 3 at the top, but you could do a chain 4 if you didn't want the top of your shawl to be to keep its shape as well as a chain 3. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 single crochet into each of those center stitches. 1 and 2. We're going to keep doing that all the way along the top of our shawl. So chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, and making 1 single crochet into each of these center stitches. 1 and 2. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing 1 single crochet into each of those center stitches, and then a chain 3 to get to the next pair of center stitches. So keep working along, chain 3, 2 single crochets all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your shawl. When you get back to the end of your row, chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to do our single crochets into the last stitch and into the chain. So into that last stitch, 1 single crochet, and into your chain, 1 single crochet. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.